Good. Let's talk Nebraska football once again, Steve. Unfortunately, we thought this could be a possibility, and Scott Frost is no longer a head coach for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So let's go right into it. Uh, on the outside point of view, and we all know that this could have been coming, but I was a little bit, believe it or not, I was a little bit surprised with the timing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
thought if they were going to fire him after like one loss like this, that they would have just done it before the season began. Why not just wait for Oklahoma, see if you get the win there? It could turn the season around, and if it doesn't, you got the bye.
yeah. The timing is something that I think a lot of people look at, and rightly so. But when you look at it with where the athletic director Trev Alberts is coming from, I think that look, on Sunday after the firing, he held a press conference at the stadium, and he was very adamant about it wanting to work with Scott Frost, and everybody wanted it to work with Scott Frost. It's in Nebraska's best interest if Scott Frost would have been successful coaching the Huskers, but he wasn't, and something needed to change because just the way that they got off to start this season was absolutely horrible. They needed to win that game against Northwestern, and they didn't. And then the next week, whether jet lag had anything to do with it, playing overseas had anything to do with it, but they went into halftime against an FCS opponent, North Dakota, tied at 7. They got booed at halftime. It was just not a great look anywhere. But the reason I think Trev Alberts, the athletic director, gave Scott the leeway here is because of basically who he was. He was former Nebraska quarterback, national championship winning quarterback. Everybody knows Scott Frost around here. He's kind of like the guy when you're talking about Nebraska football. And so I think that gave him a little bit more extra slack compared to maybe like a Mike Riley, who was an out-of-state guy,
Sure.
who wasn't a former Husker. So just because of who Scott Frost was and what he did for Nebraska football in his past, I think gave him a little bit more slack that others probably wouldn't have got. But yeah, with Trev Alberts pulling the trigger right now and ending things just before the Oklahoma game, I think there's an excellent opportunity. This creates kind of a really big it could be momentum swing with Oklahoma coming to town. It's Fox's big noon kickoff game. A lot of eyes are going to be on this game, and it's going to be a great showcase. I think is how Trev put it. So yeah, I mean things aren't great right now, but to me personally, I think that there's a lot of excitement and potential for what could happen. So I'm going to be really interested to see how all this plays out.
Well, I have already actually. Well, interesting enough, last week because I was disappointed with the week one performance as well, since I picked Nebraska to win the division. But what a big surprise! Pat Fitzgerald has Northwestern surprising people potentially again. But I went ahead and I said, you know what? After the disappointing effort the next week, I said, you know what? I get a feeling that worst case scenario could happen if they lose to Georgia Southern. I've seen upsets like this before. We just saw what they almost did with North Dakota. I actually picked Georgia Southern as one of my upsets last week, just in case.
Oh,
I said
nice.
I want to make money, just in case, because it was a big dog, and I said if I don't want to look stupid without getting something in return for it. So, but in saying that, Nebraska is one of my upsets this week, and I'm kind of feeling what you're saying about the
Yeah.
excitement of the program. I'm not yet. I don't know what Oklahoma is yet.
Mhm.
Venables' first road game as a head coach. It's not like they look dominant in their first couple of games. They're just okay. They're supposed to beat teams that they beat, but there's nothing flashy. Maybe they're holding back. We don't know. But we know where the momentum as far as the excitement is going to be. We know how fired up one of the teams is going to be, and they know that they could beat Oklahoma because they almost did it last year.
Yeah. I'm completely really glad that you said that because I didn't know. I've been on different shows and just talking amongst people and saying that I kind of am very interested in this weekend because I don't think it's going to play out the way that many assume that it will. Um, I, I, I'm with you. Look, Oklahoma, they have talent. That the two non-conference games that they won, UTEP and Kent State. are games that they're supposed to win. Obviously, Dylan Gabriel is a really good quarterback. He fits that Jeff Levy's offensive system really perfectly. He's just everything that Jeff Levy needs in a quarterback. That being said, there's going to be a buzz in Lincoln. There's going to be an energy. And right when Scott Frost got fired on Sunday morning, I didn't think that it was going to be like this. But once they introduced Mickey Joseph has a certain energy and enthusiasm behind him. And I think he has the backing from his players. His players seem to love him. I've seen him coach personally at practice. The guy is on fire. I mean, he is all energy, all gas, no brakes. He is going 100 miles an hour, and it's fun to watch. I don't know. Like, I don't want to call an upset here because that's just crazy. I don't think Nebraska is going to beat Oklahoma, but I think that Nebraska is going to give them a heck of a fight, right? I just think that with everything going on, Lincoln is going to be packed. It's going to be a crazy scene here. It's going to be a sellout. It's just the Oklahoma Nebraska
Oh yeah,
history that goes
absolutely.
along with it as well. But Casey Thompson with Oklahoma wanted him out of the transfer portal, but then they took Dylan Gabriel. So I'm sure Casey wants to get back at the Sooners a little bit about that. So I don't know. I'm with you. I think that it's not going to be as big of a blowout as many expect, but boy, I'm expecting some points.
And I don't know why anybody would think that. It's been 11 straight losses of 9 points or less. Why is that going
Yeah.
to change? All of
Yeah.
a sudden, what? They're going to just give up on the season? That's just not. This isn't college. I mean, these aren't professionals. So, and professionals are supposed to act professional, but sometimes, especially depending on what time of the year it is, you get the division in locker rooms in the professional ranks when somebody's fired. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't. But in college, I mean, this is college. I mean, these kids want to play football. They're resilient. When they lose one week, I think we take it a little harder sometimes than they
Yeah.
do. Not that they don't take it hard, but they can quickly rebound, forget it, and move on to the next game.
And I think you mentioned the one score loss thing. That was a big, big part of Scott's tenure, obviously. And I think just, that goes back to coaching instead of players on the field. Nebraska has always had talent to win these
Yeah.
games. I don't think that the coaching has been there to have them put 4 good quarters of good football together to win a football game. It just hasn't been here since Scott's 4+ seasons here. So I think that's the biggest reason of why Trev pulled the trigger and just needed. It forced his hand with that loss to Georgia Southern, but I mean, I think that's the main reason why a change needed to happen is just the coaching. The coaching has not been up to par
And
here.
why give up on a season anyway when you have the rest of your season available to you? I mean,
For sure.
Nothing has really changed. Yes, all right, you have a loss, 2 losses, but only one in the conference. You've got a wide open division, which I thought was going to be wide open, which is why I picked Nebraska to begin with. I never believed in this Wisconsin stuff. And I think we talked a little bit about it.
I still need to watch that one with Washington State. What happened there?
Yeah, that was just not enough offense. I mean, Washington's got a good defense, Washington State. And they were able to hold Allen in check. He
good young head coach at Washington State too.
Yes. So they were up for that one, and Wisconsin, I just think they're stale now.
Yeah.
I just think I think that's a program that needs to change. Maybe that's why Leonard's still there. Maybe he's the guy that needs to get the job.
Maybe he's the next dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's wide open. It could be Minnesota. It could be any of those teams, especially if Nebraska wins on Saturday. Then all of a sudden they're right in the race. They're still in the race anyway because it's not a conference game. But you get what I'm saying. Okay, so let's talk about. So Joseph comes on board. Let's talk about though the main reason Nebraska's lost those first 2 games outside the Frost. The defense has been absolutely terrible. So what happened to the defense? Because it hasn't been as bad. I mean, it was pretty bad when he first got there, but the last 3 years was pretty solid, ranked between 47 and 64th nationally. This year, after 3 games, they rank 124th in the nation because they're both poor against the pass and against the rush. So what's going on?
So last year's defense was pretty good. It was pretty salty. They kind of tapered off at the end of the season with the rush defense. But for the most part, it was Eric Shenander, the defensive coordinator's best defense at Nebraska. But that defense had veteran leadership along the defensive line, especially on the interior with Ben Stilley, Damian Daniels, DeAndre Thomas. There was even Casey Rogers, who had fought some injuries, but he had helped out in there. All those guys are gone. Ben Stilley off to the NFL. Damian Daniels gone. DeAndre Thomas gone. Casey Rogers transferred to Oregon. Another guy that was supposed to help along the interior, I forget his name. Shoot, that's pretty bad of me right now. But he also transferred to Oregon.
Well, he's gone.
So, yeah, he's gone. There's just a lot of new faces along the interior D line. And Ty Robinson comes back, and he was also a member of that rotation last year, but he hasn't had a really great season, I don't believe. And there's a lot of new faces there, like I said, that came over in the transfer portal. One of them is Stephon Wynn Jr. from Alabama, and another is Devin Drew from Texas Tech. They've just had kind of a rough start. There's also a walk-on that is starting. That's getting a starting amount of reps in Colton Feast from a small town here in Nebraska called Utan. So there's that group. The interior D lineman, I don't think is playing well enough for this to be a good defense, because opposing offenses are absolutely just destroying them.
And you don't think that's going to change?
I mean, I don't know what.
Yeah,
I don't.
It is what it is. The players are there.
It's not like you can try different players. Yeah. Maybe you can try to switch up some scheme stuff.
But the coach is still there. Same coach.
That? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So maybe Eric Shenander will switch something up scheme wise, but at the end of the day, it's probably going to be the same players out there. And boy, I'm looking at Oklahoma, and they're probably watching that game film of what North Dakota and Georgia Southern, their rushing offenses did against the Huskers defensive front. And they're just like salivating, like, hey, let's run the football right now and see if these guys can stop it. So that's why I think that there might be a lot of points scored on Saturday, because Nebraska's offense is pretty good. Casey Thompson is pretty good. But yeah, that defense, what went wrong? You got to look at the defensive front. There's a lot of new faces up there, and there's been some bad stuff happening in the back end too, in the defensive backfield. But that's got some new pieces too, with a two first-time starters at corner and safety, and their heads kind of going all over the place right now. Things are just going really fast for those new faces on Nebraska's defense right now.
And the funny thing, but if they win those close games, nobody really talks much about that. It's like, we're getting better. We'll get better. We're learning. We're getting, but it's going to stick out more. Anthony Grant is the one guy that seems to be the player of the team right now. He has had a really incredible start.
Yeah, and going back to that interior D line, Jordan Riley, his name came up to me. Jordan Riley was supposed to get some snaps, but transferred to Oregon too. So there's two interior D linemen who transferred to Oregon. Okay. But anyway, Anthony Grant, he's had a heck of a start. 3 straight games to open the season of 100 plus yards rushing. His side to side movement is Amir Abdullah-ish. Okay. It is a lot of people have watched what Anthony Grant has done behind kind of a shaky offensive line, who I think could get better. But I mean, you look at some of these runs that Anthony Grant is doing, and he's doing a lot of it on his own, by his own 2 feet. I mean, his movement skills is really impressive. And, he's a guy that came from New Mexico Military Institute Junior College out in Roswell, New Mexico. And before that, he was a Florida State Seminole. He was there for a little over a season and then went JUCO. But he's the thing with Anthony Grant is, while his production has been great, it's really fun to watch him. I would really like to see if this continues against better defenses. So, sure. I mean, he played a tough one against Northwestern, but then he had North Dakota and FCS defense, and then he had Georgia Southern, a group of 5. Nothing against those guys, but I just would like to see what it is against, Indiana, Rutgers. Once you start getting into,
we got Brett Venables, who knows a little bit about defense,
and that defense has been pretty good
so
far. They've only given up single-digit scoring in their first 2 games. So. Only 1 touchdown, I believe. So
they're doing a good. Yeah, it's but again, it's hard to tell the opponent. But again, this is the fun thing about college football. It's early, and you don't know matchups too. Okay, so Oh, by the way, when we talked in the preseason, we talked about the offensive line and were they going to change things up at all? And now that you've seen games, is it, have you seen any change at all regarding scheme? Does it look like the same offense that you've seen for the last 4 years? I mean, you tell me.
So offensive line is tough with football because I feel like offensive linemen are like the best guys to look at offensive line play and
Sure,
like judge it. I'm not that,
sure.
but in my personal opinion, it does not look that promising. I guess, like I said, there's always room to improve. Like you said, there's a ton of games
Yes.
left, and of course you can improve. But look, I mean, center Trent Hickson, I think he's been okay. We haven't really talked about him, so in my opinion, that's probably meaning that he's doing an all
Yeah,
right job. We
probably.
aren't talking about
Yeah.
him. The edges, the offensive tackles have been a little shaky to start, and that's not great news because they were bad last year.
Okay.
So Bryce Benhart on the right side, um, I just I would have really have liked to see more from him with the new coaching staff and Donovan Raiola, the first year offensive line coach. And then on the left side, Teddy Prohaska. He's a second year player, 6'10, 320 pounds. He's a massive mountain of a person, but he went down late with a injury in the Georgia Southern game.
Okay.
So we don't know. There haven't been any players available or
Okay.
many coaches available for media. So we don't know if he's even going to play against Oklahoma. And that could mean the backup, Kevin Williams Jr., who's an Omaha native, but he spent 4 seasons at FCS Northern Colorado, and it'll be his first Husker start if Teddy Prohaska can't go.
Okay.
And then you have two guys rotating at right guard. You have Turner Corcoran starting at left guard. So look, I mentioned Anthony Grant needing to do a lot of what he's done by himself, and I'll stick with that. I don't think the offensive line in front of him has been really good. Casey Thompson got absolutely lit up against North Dakota. North Dakota was getting home to Casey Thompson on their pass rush.
Yeah.
So that kind of tells you the kind of season that Nebraska's pass protection has had.
All right. Well, and you haven't noticed anything different as far as just the way that they scheme, whether it's the line or the offense. Is it just still look like the same old Scott Frost spread offense that he brought from Central Florida and Oregon?
It's kind of hard to tell when things just aren't, they get like Anthony Grant's getting hit 1 yard behind the line of
Yeah.
scrimmage,
Right.
rush or they're.
So it doesn't. Yeah. It's hard
So
to
I
tell
don't.
if it's
I
working.
don't. I'm not comfortable enough to
Yeah.
touch that subject. I guess.
Okay. Um. Either way, and we talked about this in the preseason show. Either way, whoever their next coach is, whatever they decide to do, they must go back to play in Nebraska, old Nebraska football. Get rid of this spread nonsense. It's not going to work at Nebraska. It's just not. I mean, how much more proof do you need? I mean, just go, because you're going to recruit the guys that you need to recruit, that are Nebraska guys, born and bred. I mean, this is a colder North Central America environment. I mean, this is NFC North football. It's supposed to be in Nebraska, not NFC West. So that's what I say. And I don't know if Nebraska fans feel the same, but like I compared it to Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. That's what turned Michigan around last year. And that's what Nebraska needs to do as well, is go back to the basics. And what won all those football games all those years can still do it again if they go back to playing the way that they used to play.
In Scott Frost's introductory press conference in 2018, he said that he hopes the Big Ten was going to adjust for him, and he was bringing the flash and dash spread offense, 4 wide receivers. We're snapping the ball at 28 seconds left on the play clock. We're throwing it. We're having a dual purpose quarterback. Obviously, it did not work out, and people are going to look at that quote and kind of just like laugh, and it's going to be a Nebraska joke for a long time. And look, we deserve it. He said it, but I get what you mean. The problem with Nebraska, I think a lot of Nebraska fans would love to act like a Wisconsin or a Iowa and just like be something that like is true in your identity, and not
Yes.
try to be something that you're not.
Yes.
And I think Nebraska should transition to being a Wisconsin and Iowa, and the fact that it's like a developmental program, and it's okay to admit that and play how you know play how you're supposed to play with the talent that you're able to get.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm with you. I don't know what the new coach is going to be if Mickey Joseph ends up holding on to it. I mean, he's going to be a big underdog in this thing,
Sure.
but he's got a fighting chance. And I know Matt Campbell's name's been thrown around as kind of the top favorite. So no, I agree with you. I would like to maybe see Nebraska transition and maybe just act more like the guys in their own conference, the Wisconsins, the Iowas, the Minnesotas. Be a tough football team. Don't try to be fast and run around people. Just go through people. Do what you do best. Do what you can recruit to.
Yep.
So, and who knows, with this new college football world, with everything, the new TV deal, is the Big Ten West even going to be a thing
Sure.
in 2 seasons? Sure. Are we going to be playing with Wisconsins and Iowas every year? So I don't
so.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll
it's
see.
going to be wide open. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, and it just depends on who they hire and what direction they want to go. But I totally understand you. And I know for a fact, a lot of Nebraska fans would love to do what Iowa and Wisconsin do every single game, which is just, be a tough, physical, defensive, rely on your defense and hold the ball on offense, that kind of stuff.
Well, so it's the identity of
it's
of
tough
the programs.
to beat. It keeps you in games, and it's tough to beat. You can knock off better teams by doing that all the time. Absolutely. It's complementary football.
And then, by the way, I get this quote, these outsiders who want to interfere in the coaching situation, they kind of make me laugh. But anyway, Richard Lapchick, the director of the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport in Central Florida, told the Associated Press he expects Nebraska to take Joseph's candidacy seriously. Nebraska should give him a hard look with the understanding that turning the program around that quickly is a difficult situation. Measuring his success can't only be measured on the wins and losses he has, but the relationships with the players, how hard they play, how the team congeals under his leadership. Basically, what he's trying to say is, and what he's already thrown out there is if you don't bring him back, no matter whether it's a 4-4 season or whatever, they're going to complain and call it something that it's not. I don't like it when people get involved in these types of hirings. Obviously, Trev Alberts has no problem with hiring a coach of diversity. So give him an opportunity. He could have hired Mark Whipple. He's the one who has had coaching experience. He didn't do it.
Yeah.
So give him credit for that, which means if he thinks he's the right guy for the job, he's going to think he's the right guy for the job, no matter what color his skin is. That's it. That's what I think. And I think you believe that too. So just, keep your PR stuff to the side. And I'm sure Trev Alberts won't let that influence his decision.
Absolutely not. I mean, I don't know really what to say about that. Mickey Joseph's, the color of his skin is not going to play a factor at all. I don't really know what to say about that.
And by the way, Mac, so Campbell, he's the one on the top of the list right now, is what you're saying?
A lot of people are saying Matt Campbell is the top priority right now. I mean, he's been rumored at Nebraska last year. I know, he's been rumored to a lot of different places last year. I just think it's maybe time for him to move on. I think he's done excellent things at Toledo. Before Iowa State, he was at Toledo. He raised that program. Once he got to Iowa State, it's better right now than where it was before he got there. So he's 2 for 2.
He could have been an NFL head coach.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So he just has a good track record right now of raising the places that he's at. And with more resources, more everything that he'd have at his disposal at Nebraska, you'd like to think conventional wisdom would say he'd be able to do it here too.
I like it. And again, it's right in the same area where he's basically coached most of his career.
He's a Midwest guy. He knows the Midwest well. That obviously helps. So I mean, on paper, I'm not saying Matt Campbell is going to be that guy, but on paper, he's a really good candidate too.
Steve, I'll look forward to hearing any other potential coaching rumors or things of that nature. But look, first,
there's going to be a lot of them.
There's going to be a lot of them. But first things first, and that is try to win this game on Saturday, because that could take care of that. It'd be a tough decision for Trev Alberts if Joseph can spark Nebraska this season, and it may have to begin on Saturday, and if they're in a close game on Saturday, will they be able to pull one off finally? So, and again, that could,
New head coach, new energy,
yeah,
maybe.
maybe a little luck too.
Yeah,
Because when you're in all those kind of close games, luck also comes into play sometimes. And Scott Frost needs better luck. So,
Yeah.
and good luck to him wherever he goes. I'm sure he's going to end up somewhere as an offensive coordinator or a quarterback's coach.
I don't think he's going to have one problem getting a job.
Nope.
He'll land on his feet very quickly.
Or he could even be a head coach at a group of 5 team if he wants to do it that way. Whatever he wants to do, he'll be able to do. So anyway, great talking to you, Steve. Thanks for taking your time out. I know it's real busy at this time. And enjoy the game on Saturday. We'll talk to you again, hopefully, during the season.
Will do. Thank you so much, Greg.
You got it.